Let's talk about one of the best-known concepts in education, Bloom's taxonomy. Even though it was developed back in 1956, it is still one of the most useful tools for designing effective learning. Here's an interesting fact. Most people think Bloom created the taxonomy on his own. In fact, Benjamin Bloom chaired the committee that developed it, but the framework itself was created by a whole team of psychologists and educators. And another surprise, the famous pyramid we all know from textbooks wasn't part of the original publication. It was added later by publishers. So what does Bloom's taxonomy actually describe? Simply speaking, it shows different kinds of thinking that students can develop. It begins with remembering, recalling facts, and basic concepts. Then comes understanding, explaining ideas in your own words. The next level is applying, where students use knowledge in practice. Then comes analyzing, breaking complex problems into smaller parts and recognizing relationships between them. The fifth level is evaluating, making informed judgments and supporting opinions with evidence. Finally, at the highest level, we have creating, developing new ideas, solutions, or projects. At university, these higher levels are especially important. Our goal is not only to help students remember information. We want them to analyze problems, evaluate different solutions, and create something new. Why is this so important? Research shows that activities such as analyzing, evaluating, and creating engage the brain much more deeply than simply memorizing facts. As a result, learning becomes more meaningful and knowledge is retained for longer. Bloom's taxonomy is also very practical. It helps us formulate clearer learning outcomes. Instead of writing "the student will know," we can describe exactly what students should be able to do. For example, analyze, compare, evaluate, design, or justify. Of course, Bloom's model also has its limitations. Learning isn't always a simple step-by-step process. When we learn programming, foreign languages, or design, we often move back and forth between remembering, understanding, analyzing, and creating. Learning is much more dynamic than a pyramid might suggest. That's why it's helpful to think of Bloom's taxonomy not as a strict hierarchy, but as a map of different ways of thinking. For us as university teachers, it serves as an important reminder. Let's not assess students only by asking them to reproduce definitions. Instead, let's create learning activities that encourage them to think critically, solve problems, and develop their own ideas. Because this is what higher education should be about, helping students become creators of knowledge, not just recipients of information.